some rebels form. As Vietnam is kind of a dictatorship, well, a rebellion breaks out. Happens in the southern part of us. People want democracy for some reason. With rebels in the south breaking out. With a rebellion breaking out over here with rebels popping up everywhere. Quickly, these rebels manage to start seizing the southern area. Eventually, they seize about here. With ending up being forced to agree on a ceasefire against this dictatorship. And on top of that, against all dictatorships, with strong anti-dictatorship motions. Quickly, they decide to start a war. They work on gathering strength and solidifying control of the South before they decide it's finally time to break the ceasefire. Them trying to get support now for their war. Quickly, China comes out fully against them. Against the rebels, helping Vietnam, even though their relations with Vietnam have deteriorated. They'd rather a dictatorship than another area of American control. But Taiwan quickly says no and sides with them. With Japan and Korea, they want America's support, but America basically says no and blame them for the war. Because that's what America's at these days. In Cambodia and Laos. Don't like them. But the rebels managing to get a few powerful nations. Like Australia throws support behind them. And a few NATO members. But realistically, it's only these nations. Russia doesn't support either because they're too busy fighting a war. Yeah. Care. And then America's just being mean. Because that's all America is now. America's literally falling apart. America isn't that great anymore. They're soon going to be like not even close to a world power. But nobody's worried about that, I don't think. With Canada supporting them, just because, well, yeah. With the Americans just calling for peace, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with peace. It's only the way they want to do it that's bad. Maybe. It's also good. But it's mostly bad. Well, maybe definitely not, guys. But coloring these nations red does not look right. And I'm getting Myanmar, but that's because Myanmar is Myanmar. And the Philippines agreeing with their struggles. And China wanting, in return, more support on access to the South Pacific. Which Vietnam is fine on their own. With an offensive being launched by the North. Which they start claiming victory and claiming this war will be over in a few weeks. And they continue conscripting. And in about a week, they advance to here. Wonder if that's possible in a day. Probably. With the South, what is the South in this war, advancing north, with support from the Philippines, I guess. Support from its supporters. It decides to launch an offensive now. Well, Vietnam is shocked at the effectiveness. But Vietnam is able to launch a counteroffensive. And somehow is moving troops in here. I guess when you have the supporting nation next to you, it's a good thing. With the South now saying they support every nation's territorial sovereignty in the South China Sea. Which leads to it getting some support in the Pacific. With India not wanting to do anything too crazy. But China gets Iran support. Iran basically, in their support's basically just free. Well, basically. And well, in Europe, they managed to get Italy. Why Italy? Because they did. With some nations taking a diplomatic approach, with America basically accusing the North of causing this war. Yes, they accused the North, even though the North didn't start, technically speaking. 1 second. Just 1 second. My computer's being weird. It actually is. Yeah. Overthrow the North dictatorship, because they don't like dictatorships. And they're a democracy, with America calling them a dictatorship versus a dictatorship, basically. With the real fight breaking out as they advance towards the north. With the front looking like this. With China increasing a bit of aid to the north, leading it to be a front line like this. Eventually, they claim annexation over that land. They claim it over all land, with the North managing to launch a bit of an offensive, with them managing to push them back. With the North in trouble, as some rebels in support of the Red group decides to break out in the North. With this rebellion being basically stopped, as it's put back to here. And well, in the South, they started advancing north. As this front advances to here, at the same time this front advances here. With them quickly taking out this front, but during this time, this area got annexed. So the North decides to create chaos by coming over here and cutting it off. And then over here, they start moving to cut it off, but quickly, the South withdraws them from here, with the North re-annexing it from the South. As the South claimed it, nobody recognized it, with a stalemate breaking out for a few months before America tries to make a peace treaty, which fails due to the willingness of a peace treaty. And over here, they start an offensive. Well, this offensive advances in, but they start getting pushed back. So they withdraw their troops south and use that to launch an offensive over here. As once they capture this area is resupplied and then, occupied formally. They occupy it formally, with everybody there with the north area thinking it's stable, their front, and then this happens with a big encirclement breaking out. And somehow it managed to work. With Vietnam forced to withdraw from here, and then their coast gets taken, and then South Vietnam, the new South of Vietnam, decides to advance and encircle Hanoi. And with this annexation, they managed to capture the city. And their capture of the city is one of their great victories, as they claim victory. Now to get rid of all the supporters, because they don't need to exist anymore. And then let's get rid of all the other side. As you can see, they had a lot of support from powerful nations. Not as powerful as the North had, but powerful enough. And with this, Liberation Day is held. Why Liberation Day? Because they've been liberated. And that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper.